From the Marquee Media Studio inside Mark Tank, it's the Mark Haney Show.
Yes, this is the Mark Haney Show on a mission to ignite the entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown we love. And we do that by sharing stories of winning. And we've begun to focus more on competitive advantage. We all need an advantage, hence the backyard advantage, the most connected community in the world for local entrepreneurs. So today we are joined by people who are going to share the story of El Dorado County. Wendy Thomas, she is one of the county supervisors, and Kyle Zimbelman, he is the deputy director of economic development for El Dorado County, and we're going to share what is going on in El Dorado County today, but really what got them to where they are, because they are one of the most valuable places that we have here in the Sacramento region. Joined with me as well is my daughter and co-host for this series, Ashley Haney. Ashley, welcome to the show. You just got back into town from some big conference in D.C. You look a little... No, you don't. You don't look jet. You look great.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks for having me today. I just got back late last night from Washington, D.C. I actually got to meet with Congressman Kiley in the House of Representatives and talk about legislative issues as it relates to real estate. But I'm excited to be here today to talk about El Dorado Hills, because in my world, everybody who's relocating always wants to go to El Dorado Hills and El Dorado County. So I look forward to learning more so I can be a better value.
And really, this is kind of interesting. So if anybody's listening from outside the area, Sacramento has a couple of freeways running through it. So east and west, you have 50 and 80, and north and south, you have 5 and 99. There's probably some others, but you got... El Dorado County's Highway 50, which is basically up to Lake Tahoe, running through Sacramento. So a lot of people from around the state travel through, and you have grown a lot over the last several years in terms of population relocating here. So I don't know what the numbers are, but before we get into that, let me just get a little bit of your background. Why don't we start with you, Wendy?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, Mark, and to have you with us today, Ashley. I am currently the chairman of the El Dorado County Board of Supervisors. I've been in an elected position for 12 years. I served 8 years on the Placerville City Council before my term on the Board of Supervisors, but I'm mostly proud of my Gold Rush roots. Uh-huh. My family came to Placerville in El Dorado County in 1850. We came across the plains in covered wagons from Illinois, and we settled in Placerville. And I like to say my ancestors sold gold pans rather than used them, which worked out a little better. So we've been business owners since 1850.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm really proud of that. I also had a great-great-grandfather who was on the Placerville City Council around the turn of the century. And I had another great-great-grandfather who was actually our El Dorado County Sheriff from 1898 to 1906. Additionally, at the same time, he was a tax collector. So I can only imagine that taxes got collected fairly well if the sheriff was also doing the tax collecting. I'm just saying.
I definitely want to dive into the history. I don't want to say I'm a history buff, but I'm kind of intrigued by the gold rush, because it was, you're right at the heart of where James Marshall discovered gold, and that was 1848. So your family coming here in 1850, there's probably so much history that you can enlighten us on, and maybe some of the truths and myths and things like that, clear some of that up for some of us. But Kyle, welcome to the show. You work for the county, so you are part of the county. We recently discovered your transplant from Wairika through San Diego, and you followed a woman. So tell us, give us a little bit of your background.
That's a very accurate description. Kyle Zimbelman, economic development with El Dorado County. I've been with the county for 10 years, doing economic development for the last 5. We moved to El Dorado County and to Placerville specifically. My wife was born and raised there, and started working from the county because it was basically the only game in town, and I didn't want to commute down to Sacramento from up there. And then coming from private sector, kind of weaseled my way into economic development as the closest thing to kind of merging public and private sector work together. Ironically, we have a place in Apple Hill, a 15-acre place. Generational property we bought with my wife's family, and we're kind of trying to do like the historic thing, reviving a ranch. And actually, the person who owned it was the first ag commissioner in El Dorado County as well. Yeah. So, but combining doing my work in economic development by also like having our roots in the ag industry and the ag culture. it's been a fun thing to do.
Okay, so we're going to dive into a couple of things that you said. First, I want to understand the property, because I'm one of these people that we have a little property that we're dealing with too, and so always trying to compare notes. And then also, Apple Hill and the different great places are part of what make our municipalities or our region so great. A lot of it's about the people. A lot of it's about these other resources that we have and the assets. So I want to dive into all of that. But I'm really intrigued by the history. So why don't we start there and then kind of take us up to the future? So if you don't mind, give us a little history lesson. So we discovered gold in 1848. James Marshall, obviously your family caught wind of that and decided to take their entrepreneurial spirit and to sell some gold pans and help the mining industry, if you will. Walk me through some of that history, some of the things that are that we should highlight and know about what happened in El Dorado County, because Placerville, wasn't that Hangtown?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. So I love that El Dorado County is a really special part of America's story, and it sparked when they discovered gold, it sparked the largest westward movement, and we all know what happened there. But at the time when Coloma was booming, and we became the third, believe we were the third county in El Dorado in the state of California. So we're one of the original counties in California. And during the gold rush, there were so many people in the Coloma region that the town that sprung up from that time in that era was Placerville. And it was the seat of justice. It was the seat of commerce at the time of when Coloma was booming. And so Hangtown became known as it was the seat of justice, and it was only 3 years that it was known as Hangtown, and we sometimes get a bad rap for that.
Is there still a monument or some kind something there that kind of signifies where people might have gotten hung?
There is, and people misunderstand what that is, and it is the symbol of Old West justice. Mm-hmm. And it was only 3 years. There were 3 people that were hung during that time, and that's
enough to get you a nickname.
Exactly, enough to get us a nickname. But then the ladies started coming into town, and the churches started cropping up, and the ladies thought it was just far too vulgar to be known as Hangtown. And so when the city of Placerville incorporated in 1854, they became known as Placerville.
Well, you think about your family these are pioneers. These are people that are risking a lot. People died to come on their way over to, seek their fortune or build a business. And, this was a really rugged time. And I think the West here, but specifically there in Hangtown and El Dorado County, that's where some of the most rugged people, your ancestors were rugged individuals to try to make that, or to actually survive that trek.
It was a gritty time. We had family members that were buried on, the Westward Trail, and some of my ancestors walked along part of the way. It was I think we underestimate what it took to come to the West and to make a living and make a life with virtually nothing but what you could carry on a horse or a wagon.
So do you have a family book that you guys get to read? How do you get to know all these stories? Is it your mother, your father, your grandparents sharing? So how did you get to know the history?
Our history has been passed down through generations. My great-grandmother wrote a history of our family. We regret that there was a Victrola and a cylinder where my great-great-grandmother recorded the story of her westward movement as a little girl. And unfortunately, we lost that in one of the moves. But we have the original trunk that came from the westward movement. We have a couple of chairs that survived the journey. We have a clock that's hand-painted that's still. So we have mementos from our family's journey that are, very special.
That's awesome.
And there were entrepreneurs. That stayed in the family. You're an entrepreneur. You had a printing business. Now you're in commercial real estate. Talk to us about the importance of entrepreneurship and maybe what that means to El Dorado County.
I love that in El Dorado County, small businesses and entrepreneurs can thrive. We're fiercely protective of our quality of life. We're a little different in El Dorado County, and we're darn proud of it. We don't want to be anywhere USA. We want to have unique stores and unique businesses that offer unique experiences, whether you live there or whether you're coming to visit. And so that fuels an entrepreneurial spirit. it fuels, an opportunity for folks that want to have a business and make their passion their life's work. It gives us the opportunity to do that. So the spirit of the West and that grit and that entrepreneurial spirit is still very much alive in El Dorado County.
So impressive. And Kyle, you mentioned Apple Hill, and that's an entrepreneurial venture that I think everybody from around the region goes to a couple of times a year. But Halloween, there's certain times of year you want to go up there and get your little stuff, right?
Apple donuts.
Yeah.
Hot apple cider donuts, the best.
But you are, you're in economic development, and entrepreneurs drive so much of the economy. Let's talk about some of the highlights that we talked about. Poor Reds, that's an entrepreneurial story. Obviously, Red Hot Casino is a place that I love. But maybe kind of give us a view as to what the assets are there from an entrepreneurial perspective.
Yeah, so we have quite a diverse landscape of little ecosystems in the county, from El Dorado Hills, which is kind of more our extension of Sacramento and has more suburb feel. Then you get up to Coloma-Lotus, which is a huge rafting outdoor area, and there's a lot of businesses that support that and a little economy of itself out there. Up to Placerville, which Supervisor Thomas has mentioned. You got El Dorado, Shingle Springs, all these historic towns that folks lived outside of Placerville in those areas, but they all have their own unique entrepreneurs, small businesses. We've been able to support a lot of the more recent entrepreneurs through partnership with the Growth Factory and supporting businesses within the county. So that's been really exciting to see that continued emphasis in supporting those small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Well, one of the things I tout is everything is a leadership issue. So the reason why El Dorado County has been successful is leadership. It's not just James Marshall. It's obviously changed a lot since then, and it's had great leadership. It's got good leadership, and the fact that you're forward leaning and supporting entrepreneurship, that just demonstrates, I think, the way the leadership thinks around supporting high growth companies and small business. Maybe a little bit on that as to the leadership of El Dorado County. Obviously, you're part of that, but maybe you could share a little bit about the perspective of the greater leadership group in your region.
Yeah, so early on, we had discussions with the Board of Supervisors, our CAO, and there was pretty much a unanimous consent on wanting to support small businesses. So when we had meetings, Supervisor Thomas and the rest of the supervisors had full support in wanting to support those businesses. Community leaders coming in and inserting themselves as investors in these businesses and coming to the actual board meetings to support this effort gives them, the backing to make those decisions and really make that emphasis on supporting those businesses in our county. It seemed like a scary thing because El Dorado County maybe could seem like we're out there and maybe like in the golden age or whatever, back stuck in time, but to really put support towards these, really innovative businesses and even the ones that are even in smaller areas has been really refreshing.
Yeah, you're actually providing grants to these high growth startups and helping them to get off the ground. And we know that when they're successful, there's a lot of jobs created and wealth and all kinds of great things. So help me and Ashley sort of fill in the blanks. As Ashley and I sit here in Placer County, we're up I-80, and we live in a town called Loomis, which is outside Roseville and Rockland. So it's up 80 on the way to Reno, and a lot of people from the Bay Area ended up wanting to relocate here. A lot of them from the Bay Area and elsewhere wanted to locate in El Dorado County and just in the outskirts of El Dorado County. So we both live in very desirable areas that are sisters. We surround Folsom Lake, which is a beautiful lake. But Ash, when you think of El Dorado County, we talked about Poor Reds, right? We like to go out there. I haven't been out there in a couple of years, but it's famous for golden Cadillacs and what's the drink you like?
The brown cow.
What's the brown cow?
I don't know what it is, and I don't even care.
And it's got alcohol in it.
Yes, it's great. No,
what do you love about El Dorado County? Why do you like to go there? I know we have friends there.
Obviously the people are amazing, and I think every time that I go. Granted, it's right around the corner. These are our neighbors and friends too, but you feel welcome. You feel like you do have a piece of history. That's why I love it. And honestly, I'm seeing a ton of our Bay Area transplants putting their roots down in El Dorado County. I would say at least 50% of my Bay Area representation, the buyers that I represent, want to go to El Dorado County, and I love being able to sell the lifestyle, sell the people, sell the opportunity, and the leadership to those clients.
Yeah, I think for me, I mentioned Red Hot Casino. They're one of my companies sells security cameras, and we ended up doing the camera work for Red Hawk, but I've got buddies there that own shopping centers. Kevin Nagel, I'm sure you know that guy. A lot of friends that live up in Serrano and have beautiful houses that overlook Folsom Lake, and it's just so beautiful there. But from your perspective, help fill in some of the blanks that we're missing in terms of like why El Dorado County is so special.
Well, I'd like to start that we have just abundant experiences. We're generations that like our experiences, and we've got it all. Whether you want, a thriving place to live, like you mentioned in El Dorado County, that has the town center and it has all the amenities, or you want a more rural lifestyle, we have quiet places to live with acreage. But if you want to visit and recreate, we are the playground of the Sacramento region and the Bay Area. Over 7 million visitors a year go to the west slope of El Dorado County, which is the El Dorado National Forest, go whitewater rafting down the American River, drive through Highway 49 and the Golden Chain and visit the historic hometowns, go skiing, go camping in the Desolation Wilderness, and over 8 million plus visitors a year go to the Golden Gem, which is South Lake Tahoe and the Lake Tahoe Basin. So whatever you want to do, El Dorado County has that right here in your own backyard.
Yeah, it's really a destination.
It really is. And Ashley, I love that you highlighted that people are recognizing how special El Dorado County is. It's the quality of life. It's beautiful. And from a policy standpoint on the Board of Supervisors, we are tasked with how do we protect and preserve that way of life so it remains special and beautiful, so people are drawn to it, and welcome those who want to relocate, while not overpopulating ourselves and losing what is special. And so we work really hard to find that balance. And while the west slope of El Dorado County has experienced, quite a bit of growth over the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic, the growth rate of El Dorado County as a whole is less than 1%. So we're really protective that we don't outgrow ourselves and lose what's special and unique about us.
What's the population of El Dorado County, roughly?
A little under 200,000 people.
That's what I thought.
And we're 1,800 square miles, so we are a vast and huge county with a population of about 200,000.
And so when you said that there's a certain area geographically that more people are relocating to, where can you describe that for us?
It's El Dorado Hills on the west.
El Dorado Hills.
Yeah, and Kyle can speak to that too.
Yeah, you just see a ton of El Dorado Hills families. It's rural compared to where they're coming from,
True.
but you still have the amenities that they're used to. And then a lot of folks even want to come up even further up the hill, like our family, and actually have a little more space to feel like you're roughing it a little bit more. But I think the focus is El Dorado Hills. Like once you hit the Highway 50 coming into El Dorado County, a lot of people have said that's where they stopped.
Okay, so I'm
They
going
do,
up
yeah.
50, and I see like one of those first exits has El Dorado Town Center and the Mercedes dealership, and all in and around there. Is that where you're seeing a lot of the growth?
That's a lot of the residential growth. And the commercial. And we have a business park just south of that. That's where a lot of our entrepreneurs and businesses reside out there.
They have a
That's
great
really
business park out there. And I think that people come thinking they want to go to El Dorado Hills, and not that El Dorado Hills isn't a fabulous place to live. I think people are moving to the outskirts a little bit. Shingle Springs and Placerville, I've sold more properties there than in El Dorado Hills in the last few years because you get a little bit more space and you're just a couple minutes away, and you get to close to shopping, close to schools, close to opportunity, but you're not so congested being in town.
Let's talk about you mentioned the growth and how you don't want to grow too fast. There's a balance that you want to find. How do you find that balance, and what is the growth causing? What kind of people are moving in, and how is that affecting lifestyle?
It's interesting is that the folks that are moving in are the ones that are the first to push back on any new housing.
Oh, it's the new people are saying not in my backyard or what have you.
A lot, because they recognize that they don't want to lose what they're drawn to. And so once again, it's just a really challenging balance of making sure that we're relevant, because also we don't want to be a ghost town. Towns that never stay the same, or that stay the same and never want to look at anything new, are the places that die. And so I'm really proud of the fact that El Dorado County has found that and continues to find that balance of staying relevant and compelling while preserving what we love, as far as our historic roots and our precious way of life. And you mentioned Placerville. I think it's really important to recognize that of all the kind of golden chain historic hometowns, Placerville is unique, and you sense it when you're there, but you don't recognize that what makes it different is that it's a real American working hometown. It is not just a tourist destination. It's a place where the local community comes in the mornings and grabs coffee with their buddies. It's a place where you go to the bank, you go to the pharmacy on Main Street and get your pharmacy and goods and your gifts, and you go to the hardware store and pick up your nuts and bolts and maybe a new Yeti. And so it's a place that not only where tourists love and we have vibrant restaurants, but it's a place where the locals come to shop, and that makes a difference.
So El Dorado Hills, Placerville, you mentioned Shingle Springs. Can you maybe give us these areas by like size? Which ones are, I guess, most impactful to El Dorado County?
So I think our biggest, so there's only 2 incorporated cities within El Dorado County. So Placerville, which is 10,000-ish?
Yeah, a little over 10,000 people.
And then city of South Lake Tahoe, which is 20+ thousand-ish folks. And then by area, I mean, El Dorado Hills is probably 40,000, 50,000 people at this point, unincorporated area. As you come up, Cameron Park is probably about 16 to 20,000 people. Get to Placerville, 10,000, then up to Pollock Pines, which I think is about 4,000 to 5,000 folks in that community, which is a beautiful community if you want to get up higher elevation, if you like snow.
So where does it start snowing? Where does it start snowing? A little bit above Placerville.
Camino to Pollock Pines is the snow line. That's where you get stopped on Highway 50 to get the chains on.
Okay. And then you've got a couple of ski resorts up as you get up there a little further.
Yep. Yeah. Sierra Tahoe, Kirkland's out.
Heavenly out there somewhere?
It's in the Tahoe Basin.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so then you mentioned Tahoe, but would this be considered North Shore? Because this is the California side.
Yep.
South Lake.
Is it considered South Lake?
South Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, that's right. North Shore is up 80. That's right.
Yeah, once you get over the basin into Myers, you're still in El Dorado County, and then up until the city line, up to Tahoma-ish on the west side of the lake.
So what is that like being right there on the border? You're operating on the border, and people somewhat want to be in maybe Nevada so they can avoid taxes or regulation, but then why do they stay in California? What's the draw to stay on our side?
Do you have any insight on that? I don't know if I know necessarily why. I think
because it's a little more affordable.
It is a little bit more affordable. I assumed it was.
South Shore rather than the North Shore.
Okay.
And it's gorgeous, and there's a lot of activity there. I think it's really important to recognize that the bulk of our transient occupancy tax, our hotel tax, comes from the South Lake Tahoe Basin. So it is the primary place in El Dorado County where visitors go and stay. And that's a really important thing to recognize. Yeah. So people just,
Are they doing Airbnbs or are there hotel chains?
There are hotels. The vacation home rentals are the.
There's a few little restrictions, that are going on up there. So,
okay.
But they do have some really awesome campgrounds and places too that are not campgroundy, right? You feel like you're at a resort, but you also get to have that vacation experience too.
Yeah. And you bring up an interesting point, because the vacation home rental, the VHRs, are another place where we've had to find the balance, because it's real easy to perhaps buy a home up in the Tahoe Basin and then just rent it out and have a profitable property. And we want people, profit is not a 4-letter word. We want people to, have the opportunities with their own properties. And yet, once again, we're having to find a balance between preserving neighborhoods and preserving places for folks that live and serve the South Lake Tahoe Basin to be able to live there. That's really important. So we've had to add some some perhaps buffer zones and the few restrictions to VHRs to find that balance.
Well, you mentioned we're talking. Ashley's a housing expert. You're a commercial real estate expert, and just thinking about, you mentioned we've been talking affordability, which is people were moving to Sacramento, the area, for a long time because we were a lot more affordable in the Bay Area, and I guess we still are, but we're less affordable. It's harder and harder these days to find affordable housing. Is that how much of that is on your radar in El Dorado County?
100% on our radar.
Yeah. Making sure you have enough housing for these for the workers, if you will, in these industries to support when maybe you have high net worth people moving into our region, and yet somebody has to run these businesses.
And you understand from a development standpoint, the policies of California make it so expensive to develop. And while we certainly want to protect our environment and we value that, we also need to recognize that some of the policies from the state of California are making it just impossible to build that missing middle housing and that first house that we all grew up having the opportunity to buy. And so it's something we need to wrestle with at a state level.
Are there any neighborhoods, I'm sure there's some, that are more like what we'll consider, I'll call it the pickup truck neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood where the kids are outside playing catch, the street lights come on when it starts getting dark, and at some point when it's dark you got to go in and eat, but everybody's playing in the street, and there's pickup trucks lined up and down the street. Are there's places like that here in Rockland and in Roseville, but do those exist in El Dorado County?
Absolutely.
Oh, they do. Okay, I'm just not familiar.
In Diamond Springs and in Placerville and Cameron Park and
I think you could even say
everywhere.
in El Dorado Hills, I have friends that have houses in their neighborhoods. They'll have kids playing outside.
Yeah.
I think it's throughout the county.
I think it's very
great
parallel.
to
It's
live.
basically take a mirror image of what we have here, flip it over, and give a little bit more of a terrain.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of nice hills and terrain that maybe we don't have, I guess, here in Rockland, Loomis area as much. Have them as you get up in the foothills a little bit more, but we're not, there's not as much building up there right now. So, yeah, it's really special.
But it's 30 minutes away, so it's not even that far, and you can literally feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, or you can be in that pickup truck neighborhood or luxury home.
That's right.
So, Kyle, you found some acreage out in the Apple Hill area.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of that. What made you desire to do that and invest there? That's like you're putting down your roots there, even though you're from Wairika.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, my wife is from El Dorado County, born and raised in Placerville. It just happened by chance. We'd loved Apple Hill, but never thought we'd have an opportunity to buy a place there. And then talked with our in-laws, and they were interested in going in on a property together. It sounds like similar to what you guys are doing.
You guys still like each other, huh?
Yes, yeah.
We're living on the same property, and my son lives out there too. So there's 3 houses on one property, 9 grandkids, 2 kids, and we haven't killed each other yet.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you expect.
They love it. Yeah, there's a little cottage that they live in on the property now. They had another property that they sold. I have 4 kids, 4, 6, 8, and 10 that are running around the property constantly. Get to see their grandparents. Get to see their grandparents every day. So it's an ideal situation. I was blessed with great in-laws and my wife. So
you're living out there now, then?
Yeah, we've been since 2019.
Okay, and the in-laws live out there too.
Correct.
Okay.
Within the last year that happened. So yeah, it's worked out great.
Yeah, and I have to say the Commuter Fruit Ridge, Apple Hill region, as it is known, is in my district, and those are some of the finest people you will ever meet. The ranchers, the farmers, the vineyard owners. Many of them are the original families that created the Apple Hill district and created Apple Hill, which is a trademarked. And so you have legacy family farms where, second and third generations are working the land, and they're small family farms. There's no production farming in El Dorado County. So we have the real thing. And then they provide an opportunity for folks to come up the hill and experience ag. So it's a incredibly special district. I love that you're living there.
Yeah. And a lot of those people are our neighbors. This is the first time this house our property had been outside of the family since the 1800s.
Outside of somebody else's family.
Out of the Hassler family is what it's called.
I bet they were relieved when you moved in.
Yeah, they were. It was an emotional thing for them to pass it on to someone else. So yeah, it's it's a special place.
It is,
and the schools are top rated too, right? So your kids are going to top rated schools. I mean, my kids aren't there. So what's the school system like?
The school system is great. I mean, personally, we actually homeschool our kids, so they're with mom a lot and learning tons of cool things. But our school system is like top tier. Was at a leadership thing with the superintendent of schools this morning. very active in the community. It's one of our sales points on attracting businesses, attracting residents. They come check out our schools and high schools, and it's.
Well, I know Oak Ridge High School's notorious for being a great football team. Yep. I've seen all the players coming out of Oak Ridge. I coached a few in baseball and traveling teams and stuff. They're just great athletes, but you've got great coaching there. And so from an athletic standpoint, I tip my cap to what's going on there in El Dorado County.
Yeah, and I have 7 grandchildren throughout many schools throughout El Dorado County, and just amazing experiences. Whether you want a charter school or whether you want a traditional elementary school or high school, we've got it all. And our superintendent of schools is incredible. So we have amazing leadership with our superintendent of schools as well as all of our other district superintendents. So education is just thriving and quite amazing in El Dorado County.
The one thing I feel like we kind of skipped over a little bit was the business park aspect. So right once you get out of Sacramento County, literally the next exit, if you're getting off and you're going to go to a town center, on the right is that business park. So it's super close to Sacramento. But I don't even know what kind of businesses are even in there. Are there a lot of tech people? Are there virtual businesses? I have no idea any of that.
It's a mishmash of all types of businesses in there. We actually have a couple schools in there. Like it's a real mix of R&D. It's zoned all research and development. But there are some developers looking at some other alternative options of having maybe some housing options within there so that people can live and work and play in the same area. A lot of our it's a lot of tech, a lot of bioscience stuff as well, but there's some construction companies too out there that we helped. We have a program, an incentive policy in our economic development shop where if it's a local company that's looking to expand, we can help pay for some of their impact fees. Wow. So we've been able to do that with a construction company that wanted to expand and build a building down there. So really investing in our homegrown companies that really want to place roots down in our business park.
But also wide open for those who are trying to relocate.
It's underdeveloped at this point, so there is plenty of opportunity. I know construction costs are what they are right now, but we have some activity going on right now, and there's a lot of projects kind of in the pipe.
And we are eager to welcome new businesses to El Dorado County. Another exciting project is Marshall Hospital. We're very proud to have an independent community hospital that's a full-service hospital in Placerville, and they are expanding. They bought the old Blue Shield building and are expanding into El Dorado Hills as well. Wow. And so that is really exciting. They're going to specialize, I believe, in orthopedics and
some outpatient surgery
for all the sports teams that are there in El Dorado County. So we're very blessed to have them expanding services in El Dorado County.
And one of my good buddies, I was thinking when you asked that question, you guys know Chris McCarley. He owns Hanzo. It's the largest scissors company for hair care, I think, in the world, and they're based out of one of those little, one of those little shopping areas, and they ended up starting a church and a school right in that area, and the guys, incredibly entrepreneurial oriented folks that are in and around that business park. So very, very special. I didn't know about the hospital expansion though. That's exciting. Super exciting.
It's just happening right now.
Okay, so let's talk about what the vision is. We talk about the schools, and our young people are our future. Why are they destined to stay in the El Dorado County instead of leaving and seeking their fortune elsewhere? What's the vision that's going to lock them up here or entice them to come back after they have some success or after they have college?
I think it's our unique way of life. We are not anywhere USA. And I think once our young people, they might want to get out of Dodge and sow their oats and, spread their wings, but they continually recognize how special this place is that they grew up in and feel a sense of legacy to come back and bring their newfound skills and their desires and their passions and contribute to the place that was so special in their upbringing. So being a unique place, you can't what's the word?
Quantify it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about the challenges that you might face in maintaining all this stuff. But the one challenge that prompted in my mind is you had a big fire up there a couple of years ago that you have unexpected natural disaster type things happen like the Caldor fire. How much of a setback was that? Maybe you can describe that, and then maybe other things that are sort of obstacles in this journey for you guys.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I'm really proud of us for our response to the Caldor fire. while the Caldor fire was still heading toward the Tahoe Basin, which horrified all of us. It was the second time in history that fire crossed the Sierra Nevada mountain range. We recognized that we had two choices, that we could hide our head in the sand and say, thank goodness this is, it's almost done, and just wait for the next one, or we could do something different. And we knew we had to do something different. Our outdoor recreation is valued at over $607 million. We have a gross crop value with the Apple Hill region ag communities of $49 million. We have tremendous capital assets that we have to protect. And so we got real serious about resiliency measures. And it's a concept that I brought to the Board of Supervisors along with my colleague, Supervisor Heidel. And while the Caldor fire was still burning, we formed a task force of professionals of the U.S. Forest Service, the CAL FIRE, our fire professionals, our resource conservation districts, and we brought them together to figure out what we needed to do in order to be a resilient county. Prior to the Caldor fire, the county wasn't in the business of land management or resiliency. There were a lot of fabulous siloed efforts, but they weren't coordinated. And so after a year of them figuring out what we needed to do, we formed what's called OWAPR, the Office of Wildfire Preparedness and Resilience. And it now sits within the CAO's office, and all of those partners are still at the table. And we are now taking all of the fabulous work of our fire safe councils and coordinating that so they don't compete with each other for precious grant money, but are coordinating their plans and having strategic land management plans. Because of OWAPR, we also just received a $25 million grant to do a pilot program outside of Placerville in one of the critical drainage areas that we know is prime for wildfire. And we're doing full home hardening and vegetation management over 450 homes, and seeing what it means to take strategic initiatives in a critical area to harden that environment and to protect a community. So I am really proud of our efforts. And in fact, I just was back in Washington last month talking with one of the deputy directors of the U.S. Forest Service, and he continues to say how revolutionary our response to the Caldor fire was, that this came out of it, and it's a model for the nation.
And thinking about that, so I love that you work. I love the collaboration and the teamwork and the quick response. It's very entrepreneurial. It's really cool to see that, because we're talking about government agencies and special districts and things like that getting together and working together like a team, as a team. But I wonder, so you mentioned the vegetation. Are they having to cut back to create barriers to stop fire from jumping, or are they bringing in ways to bring in water in case we do have a fire? What kinds of things are on the table?
More like you talked about, strategic vegetation management, land management policies, whether it's thinning the forest in strategic areas. We're working on a fire adapted 50 right now. You'll see work where the trees are being thinned so that if a fire sparks from a car, that won't go further into El Dorado County. It'll stop it. It's strategic fire breaks. At the Caldor fire, the El Dorado Georgetown Resource Conservation District, prior to the Caldor, had done an amazing work around Sly Park, Jenkinson Lake, and it was that work where they created a fire break. Little did they know that probably saved the towns of Camino, probably even Placerville. It stopped the Caldor fire in its track and headed east rather than sweeping down west to our populated communities. So we know that strategic initiatives are critical. And so our Office of OWAPR, as well as all of our partners, are working to create a resilient El Dorado County. And our hopes are that we can continue to leverage that to bring fire insurance rates down, which is so incredibly challenging in the urban wildland interface. And protecting our investments.
And on the real estate side, so one thing that Placerville specifically has brought in is what they call an AB 38 inspection. So prior to you selling your house, you have to get one of these inspections through CAL FIRE. They basically want to make sure that you have enough defensible space around your home that if one of these fires were to hit, it protects your home and your neighbor's home, right? And so they have these inspections that come out, and if there's any repairs that need to be done, they have a year to finish those repairs. So my last one I did, for example, we had CAL FIRE come out. The guy was awesome. There was a few repairs. They even offered to give a bid for the work to be done, and it was so reasonable. They're so committed to doing it that they want to put those efforts in and get the work done because they want to preserve the community rather than trying to just nickel and dime their citizens.
I'm glad you brought that up because it is state law now that but the teams that we have that are going out to inspect folks are just incredible, and ultimately it will protect our communities.
Yeah.
So we talked about obstacles, affordability. Obviously, you're dealing with the fire. The affordability issue is a thing that I guess almost everybody in California is facing these days. What other issues do you think are going to be surfacing over the next next several years?
I mean, so just to follow up on the fire resiliency, the Title 25 ordinance or resolution that the board passed is making it easier for those folks in that community to rebuild their homes. It's a little bit of an easing on the building code restrictions.
Oh, okay.
They can build with materials that were used in the fire, that were burnt, or as long as they pass certain standards with our building department, they can build certain models and frame sizes in order to afford to be able to build back.
Where are we at in that recovery effort? Because that was 3 or 4 years ago.
It's ongoing. The Grizzly Flat community was devastated by the Caldor fire, and it's been tragic. Our initial response was to prioritize those victims that had lost their homes through waiving fees, waiving permit fees, bringing them to the front of the line on their rebuilding efforts. We now have Team Rubicon out there right now that are helping take down hazardous trees, which is just incredible. As Kyle said, we have Title 25, where they can basically build their own home with their own lumber, and it's not a fully compliant state house, but it's incredibly affordable. They don't have to have sprinklers. They don't have to. It's a mechanism that is allowable by the state, but it's for those folks that didn't have insurance that can still rebuild a house and live in El Dorado County, which is an incredibly innovative project. So that's going on right now too. So.
And what about all the agricultural businesses? It sounds like you guys were able to preserve and save many of them, but this would be a great place for people to move to that are in the ag business. Did most of those get saved, or what's going on with those businesses?
The ag community was. Properties were not devastated by the fire, except their crops were. There were a lot of smoke damage that year. But as far as the family farms, those weren't affected, which was a good thing. But they lost their crops that year for the most part.
How's the transportation aspects? As we drive up and down 80 here, especially in Rockland and Roseville, there's a lot of traffic, and it's we're continuing to grow, and so the traffic ends up becoming kind of a thing out here. I know I've experienced it on 50, but I'm not as familiar with El Dorado County as much, more in the Sacramento area and Placer County.
Yeah, it's not as compacted as on the 80, I'd say, but there are definitely some intersections and some CIP projects that are on the books that are going to improve a lot of the flow of traffic. I'd say primarily just coming up the corridor, there's just a few that just aren't as efficient as they should be.
The challenge is that the state of California isn't funding capacity-inducing projects, so you can't expand your road network. And so in order to balance congestion, because we don't want to be a congested county, we're also concerned about evacuation, as we live in that urban wildland inland interface. So once again, it's incumbent on us to find that balance between making sure that we spread growth out and not concentrate it in any one area that can't handle the traffic.
Yeah, love it. So just as we kind of wrap up, I'll kind of have maybe one or two more questions, and Ashley might have more. But if I'm inviting people to come to El Dorado County, the things that come to mind for me are, the way I get out there typically is kind of take the back roads from, let's call it Granite Bay, and going around the lake.
Green Valley.
And Green Valley Road, and that way. And it's really, the traffic's not too bad doing it that way. You can launch your boat at Browns Ravine, so I invite people to come out and do boating and a launch from a Browns Ravine, and come into town, and there's all kinds of things that we talked about to do. But if we invite people out there, besides Apple Hill and Red Hawk Casino and Browns Ravine, what else should we be inviting people to come to? Obviously, you mentioned some of the outdoors things. Are there specific times and reasons to get out there?
Well, do you want to start, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a ton of them, but there's trails all throughout the hiking and the outdoor activities are unmatched. Coloma Lotus, there's beautiful trails, rafting, all throughout that area. Get up to Pollock Pines, and I mean South Lake Tahoe obviously is an amazing outdoor recreation and piece for it. And then, there's Poppy Hill. There's all these places that are big tourist draws.
You got even wineries out there, don't you?
We haven't even touched on the wineries.
El Dorado County has amazing wineries throughout the South County as well as the Apple Hill region, and we're known, as you said, for the fall, coming to the Apple Hill region, and yet we invite you to come out. It's open Labor Day, and I love Apple Hill region in September rather than October, when a lot of the tourists come. The family farms are open, the experiences for young kids, young and old alike, and that's just a really precious experience. Love whitewater rafting through the summer, hiking in the Desolation Wilderness and camping. And during all times of the year, you just get in your car and experience our little hometowns around the Golden Chain Highway and go down to Coloma and see where gold was discovered. I mean, how often do we experience, the traditional tourist sites, in our own backyard? We often don't. Mm-hmm. And yet it's so important to see that. Gold Bug Mine in Placerville is an amazing asset where your kids can go walk through an original, gold mine and see how gold was mined by docents. It's an amazing experience that folks don't know about. So
I love the history part of it. I personally love camping at Coloma too, because you can just walk down to the water. Yeah. I've camped there in the summer and in the winter. And one of my favorite memories as a kid was at that park where Marcus played his baseball all-star game.
Oh, in Placerville?
Placerville.
Yeah. You guys have a really cool, the 12-year-old all-star kids.
Yeah.
It's set in amongst those trees.
Like
you hit the ball.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're a home run hitter, it's ball, you lose the ball type thing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of memories as a kid going there. I just couldn't think of what it was called off the top of my head.
I knew it was in Placerville.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Incredible.
And then, of course, skiing in South Lake Tahoe was just an amazing, gorgeous place.
Okay, so what did we not ask you? I want to give you two the last word. So what did we not ask you that maybe is important to mention or discuss here as we talk about El Dorado County?
I'd like to end with our county's response to our vision for our county. We just recently refreshed our strategic plan. And I think if you're looking at a place, it's important to know what the local government values. And we have 5 pillars to our strategic plan, and that is safe and healthy communities. If you don't have safe and healthy communities, you don't have anything. And that is a cornerstone of our values. Public infrastructure. Everyone wants, solid roads and a solid road network and safe water. So public infrastructure and investing in that is important to the Board of Supervisors. A thriving economy is one of our our cornerstones. Once again, that is a critical piece, that you can have a safe and healthy community, but if you don't have a thriving economy, you're not going to have the resources for your law enforcement, for your infrastructure. Workforce excellence. That's a new one for us because we realize we have over 1,800 employees at the county. And as Kyle mentioned, most of our population lives in the unincorporated areas of El Dorado County, which means they get their direct services from the county, not a city. And that is incredibly unique. And we recognize that it's people that provide those services. And if we don't enable someone to build a career like Kyle, he recognized that El Dorado County was a great place to work. And if we don't pay our folks fairly, if we don't value them, if we don't give them opportunities to advance in their careers, they're not going to serve our constituents well. So taking care of our workforce is one of our cornerstones. And the last one is also a new one for us, and that's strategic innovation. So yes, we are a historic, rural, county, and yet we are also forward-thinking because we realize that we don't have all the resources because we don't want to open the floodgates of growth. We want to welcome folks to invest in our county, but we also want to preserve our quality of life. So we need to do things a little differently and get a little creative. Whopper is an example of that to protect our investments. So those are our 5 pillars of our county and our vision, and I'm proud of that. And we have amazing leadership in our county. It's a fresh, exciting time in El Dorado County.
Well, that's kind of a mic drop type of.
I was like, geez.
But Kyle, I need you to kind of, be the last word.
I'll follow that now. No, that was perfectly said. I just would like to express, we are business friendly, El Dorado County. The board has taken a lot of effort and intentionality in putting resources to economic development and business support. We have like liaison services with, it could be a mom and pop shop, it could be a big company, but we're there to walk them through the entire process and provide that support. Like it's going to be a process. Government is never cut and dry and right through. It can be, and we try to make it that way, but we're trying to help people get to a yes when they want to come to El Dorado County.
El Dorado County. If I wasn't living here in Placer County, I would be moving to El Dorado County.
Ashley could get you a house there.
Maybe a second home. Who knows? Well, thank you both for joining us on the show. Thank you for what you do for our community and really the leadership. Everything's a leadership issue, so thank you for leading.
Well, thank you for highlighting El Dorado County. It's a privilege to be here.
You bet.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.